Looking to refresh your space without breaking the bank? JEC Painting has you covered. Whether it's a fresh new look inside your home or boosting curb appeal outside, we specialize in both interior and exterior painting with results that truly stand out. Call or text today at 419-350-8067. JEC Painting.
Hi, I'm Sean Farkas with For Good Will Saint. Today I have Matt Hoffman with me, and we're going to discuss his conversion story about how he grew closer to God throughout his life. So thank you so much, Matt, for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so let's begin with, tell me about yourself. How did your, let's start with your childhood. Like, how did your parents affect you as you were growing up?
Well, I was raised in a loving family. I was adopted, and my sister and I were both adopted. We both knew that from a very young age. So my parents adopted me when I was just 3 days old, and we moved to a farm outside of Perrysburg, Ohio. And raised in a very loving way. We went to a Lutheran church there close to town and to where we lived on the farm, and had a normal childhood growing up. Went to church, went through the catechism, in my junior high years, or whenever that was exactly, with the Lutheran catechism. I think it was 2 years. And then we came into the church, and pretty normal, living on a farm, working hard on the farm, and animals and playing sports, but God was always very important to our family. I realized later in life I never really had a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Just we went to church, and it was something you did, and I knew who God was, and my parents, made sure of that. But it wasn't later in my life until I had a real relationship with Jesus Christ.
Now, what would you say would have made a difference? Because you had the catechism, you had a Lutheran pastor. What could have gone differently? Like, could the pastor done something, or how could it affect you more deeply if you could have gone back?
Sure. I think it, in just my way of thinking, I think it's still a personal choice that you have to accept him in your heart. You have to mentally or in some way actually accept Jesus Christ to come into your heart. And I don't think we were ever taught like that. We read our prayers, we knew that our fathers, we did everything we were supposed to do, but I don't think it has anything to do with the churches. Anything the church could have done better.
Yeah.
It was just, I think, just being a junior high kids, we just did it because friends of mine, and I'm glad I got it. It gave me a good foundational background as I moved on later in life.
Yeah, and it's really it's kind of like planting the seed. Like, you went over the catechism as a kid, and then when you kind of grow up, you still have those roots, inside you. So let's continue on from you were in high school.
Yeah, well, in high school, there's a bit of a romance story that goes on with this too. That's a big part of this story. But I think in high school, I ended up having a girlfriend who was also a Lutheran, and we dated through juniors and seniors. She chose to become a teacher, so she was going to Bowling Green State University for education. We dated off and on through college also. Well, I was farming full time, and I had also bought a semi, and I would haul steel in the wintertime. Her first job was down in Middletown, Ohio. That was her first teaching job, and I was in the winter. I'd haul steel out of Armco Steel, and so there was that connection all along. I'd not been the best boyfriend at times, so we had lost touch at different times, and I made up my mind that one of my trips down there, I was going to call her, go out to dinner, and see when she got done teaching if she'd come back, and we made plans to get married.
Wow.
Well, it turns out that I had waited too long, and she wasn't really happy with me, and so that phone call ended, and we'd gone our separate ways. And I ended up meeting a girl up here where we lived, and she met someone down there and got married. So we had lived separate lives then for 32 years until we connected after I had come into the church, which is a whole other part of the story.
Now, to help you mature as a man, like having that relationship, you're dating and you weren't the best boyfriend, and when you kind of got hit with the 2x4 when she hung up the phone on you, that wasn't just kind of like, all right, I need to kind of step it up.
Yeah, I think so. I think in that part of my life, it's just like, oh, I'll move on and we'll see what happens. It turned out to be a big part of after my conversion story when we had reconnected. But we'll get to that
Yeah.
a little bit later. So
Okay. So you're farming, yeah, you're really busy.
yes, very busy. I've always been busy being on the farm, and it's always I've always worked the farm and another job. And after I'd gotten married to my first wife, Pam, um, she was an insurance agent and I was farming, but it was in the late 80s, mid to late 80s, the farm economy was very bad. So I got a construction job to help supplement the family. And we had 3 children. When we got married, she was Methodist, so I had became a Methodist, leaving the Lutheran faith, which at that time it seemed like it was very similar.
Yeah.
So we raised the children all in the Methodist church outside of in Lucky, Ohio, where we kind of lived, and did the very best. Tried to take them to Sunday school, would go to church, tried to make sure we're doing the right things. And Pam and I gotten sick about. I'm not trying to think how old the children were. Cassie, my youngest, was at home. Yeah, I think a freshman or sophomore. And the boys were in college and out of the house. But she got sick and ended up passing away, which started my downfall. And that's where I lost my faith.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, when you guys were just married and you're starting out with a family, how was your prayer life as a family? You said you were Methodist.
Yeah. It was a lot like being a Lutheran. I mean, I still didn't have a relationship with Jesus Christ, but we went through all the motions. I mean, we had a small little community that was good for the kids, with Sunday school, and then there would be a vacation Bible school and different things. So that was always a nice environment. I mean, they still had lots of friends from church. They probably have it to this day.
Wow.
But yeah.
Yeah. So as you grow up, you had 3 kids, how did that help you with your, just at a very basic level, with your relationship with your wife and God? Did your kids help in any way in becoming more humble, more patient?
Well, I definitely think you have to be more patient. I would tell them all, when you have a child, you don't get a worksheet of what to do. And I said that would be honest with me. We made mistakes raising children. We tried to do the best we could. But when they first hand their first baby, as you know, into your arms, it changes their life. You realize that you need all the help you can get. And I think I will always remember that I would pray to God that help me to understand this and the responsibilities that come with it. So in that way, the children definitely would change your life.
So now we fast forward a bit. Your wife is sick.
She's sick, yes.
So, how did that affect you spiritually? Well, you saw your wife suffering so much.
It was very hard. I couldn't quite understand why this was happening. I guess I was blaming God as I think back on it, that here we are. I've tried to do the best I could. We members of the church. I was on Pastor Perry's committee. I tried to do everything I could to do the right things, and it felt like God was punishing me and the family with this. Ended up being a tragedy. With my wife passed away on Christmas morning.
Wow.
So I definitely had lost my faith, and it was a very, very hard time. As I sort of started a downward spiral after that, which was, was hard to think back on, and everything my kids had to go through and our friends had to go through. But it's part of life. There's loss. I realize now, and I just handled everything the wrong way. I tried to fill the void in my life by doing everything except what I should have been doing is turning to God. And that went on for probably a year and a half, and just drinking, working way too much, and any way I could fill the emptiness is where I was trying to do it with instead of what I really needed.
Yeah. It's tough. Like it's like a natural reaction to suffer in that way when you lose someone that close, especially on Christmas morning. As you see your kids are, there. So yeah, that's very difficult.
It was very difficult. But moving forward with it, I wouldn't want to go into the house because everything I was remembering.
Yeah.
So I would just get up in the morning at 5:30, go to work, come home, work on the farm, start drinking once I was home, and then not go to bed till midnight, 1 o'clock when I was too exhausted to do anything else, and wake up at 5 in the morning, start all over again.
No, so you were trying to fill that emptiness, that void within you.
Yes.
With alcohol. What would you say to someone listening that's struggling with that? Maybe they experience a loss and they're filling their void right now with alcohol.
That is just a Band-Aid. And luckily, I never depended on alcohol. And I know there's a lot of alcoholics that they have to drink. I didn't have to drink. I could not drink if I wanted to.
Often.
But it was just what I did to numb the pain. I would go 3-4 days possibly without drinking. It wasn't I ever needed to. Just I would chose to. And, a lot of people, even today, my wife and I can go and out to dinner. I can have a beer or something. And that's it. It was never, thank God for that, never had that addictive trait that that would have to, but lots of people do.
Yeah. But you felt the emptiness within you. But everyone feels like they need to fill that, and we can only fill that with Jesus. But until you experience that, it's empty alcohol, pornography, drugs, material things.
They're all very fleeting reliefs that it's come right back once. Then you need some more of it. And unlike Jesus Christ, that once He fills our hearts, it's there forever. And it's just, but we have to ask Him to help us, which kind of leads me to the next part of this conversion is. And getting so exhausted, and it was so more or less a wit's end. I mean, there was nowhere else more to turn. I remember one night I get ready to go to bed before I was going to pass out, like I knew normally did. I would just pray to the Lord and just asked Him if it is true what people say. Show me how. I give it all to You. I surrender to You. I can't do it anymore. And I didn't really notice much different for a couple of days, maybe to a week, but then I started to feel a little bit different. I didn't feel the need to work quite as long or drink quite as much. Cassie, then my daughter, was a hostess at a Bob Evans restaurant. She would work Saturday mornings and Sunday mornings. So I would usually try to go and see her when she was working and get breakfast on a Sunday morning, but she was working. And the one morning, it was a nice enough morning that I knew she was going to go to Bob Evans and work. So I got on I was going to ride my motorcycle. It was a nice day. And the direct route would have been a straight route right to Bob Evans. But I chose to go a different way and went through Perrysburg on down River Road. And I just, as I was getting close to the church that I now go to, St. Rose Catholic Church in Perrysburg, Ohio, I just felt the need. The bike just turned in the parking lot because I could see other people going into church. And I had been feeling like I need to go back to church. I need God. But I couldn't go back to the little Methodist church that we were a part of because everyone, it's such a small congregation, when they would see me or the children, if the children were going, they just were full of grief. And they would almost bring me right back to where I was trying to get away from. So I pulled in a parking lot and I followed everyone else into church. And I went up about halfway on the left side and sat down in a pew and wasn't familiar at all with the Catholic faith. I didn't really have any Catholic friends that I ever hung out with. And so I just did what everybody else did. Stood up, kneeled, and when everyone up for the Eucharist for communion, I felt like I should. I knew there was something different about it, so I didn't go up. And when everyone came back into the pew and knelt, then I knelt also. And I looked up at the crucifix of Jesus there, and that's when he spoke to me and just said, "Why are you feeling so sorry for yourself? Look at all I've done for you." And at that moment, it just felt like someone from behind me just put this huge Afghan over me. And this sense of peace just filled me. The peace that I hadn't had on those 2 years or since my wife's passing. Then it was almost startling to think, who's behind me? Who's doing this?
Yeah.
But as it was just him filling me, and that's when it changed. That's when I started doing better. I was spending more time with the kids, doing the right things, leaving the other things go.
Yeah.
And then every Sunday I'd go back, and then that peace would come over me every time I'd sit in the pew. And the feeling would last longer and longer.
Well, you're letting like the bad habits. Like,
Yeah.
like you said, like we're like fleeting.
Right. No, I would feel that peace, and then it would stay with me for longer times to the point where I had to go to church. It wasn't a choice. It was, I need to go. I need to feel that peace.
Okay. Now, well, reflecting back on it, like backing up, do you feel like that was God's grace that Jesus was saying, hey, like come into the parking lot at St. Rose?
I don't remember turning. I don't remember why I would have turned. The bike, it was just him doing it. Of course, I was steering it, but
Yeah.
it was a divine intervention in my mind. I had no reason to go that way. I shouldn't have been going that way.
Yeah.
So, and there's plenty of churches in Perrysburg. I could have went to any of them, but I chose, God, I think I needed to hear what I needed to hear. And as a Protestant my whole life, the crucifix that we have at St. Rose is a pretty large crucifix. And I think I needed to see the image to understand the sacrifice he made for all of us. And it hit me that hard.
Now, was it looking at the crucifix, seeing Jesus suffering because he loves you, and you had all the suffering that had gone through in your life? Did your relationship with Jesus grow more intimately when you united your sufferings with his on the cross?
I'm sure. Yeah, everything changed. That's when I think when I prayed that week or so, or 2 weeks before, I'm not really sure on the time frame on that. When I gave everything to him, when there was nowhere else to go, and I surrendered it all to him, that's when it started. That's when he knew that was what he needed, and that's what my family needed, and that's what my relationship with him began. Once I had that conversion kneeling in the pew, that's when it got so much more intense and so strong.
Now, did your children notice that peace within you?
Yeah, they noticed. I kept this all private from them. I don't know exactly why, but I didn't want anyone trying to steer me away. So that's why I didn't tell him. But they all noticed that I was changing. And then even guys at work, they could see the difference in me, which was good. That's what I needed.
Yeah, Jesus was in you.
Jesus was in me. I realized that someone did love me unconditionally. Yeah, like a true father loves his children. So it was very powerful.
No, after you had that experience with Jesus speaking to you in your heart when you converted towards the Catholic faith, you could have just left it at that and be like, wow, how that peace felt nice, and just kind of gone back. What made you said you kept coming back to the church, you needed more Jesus?
Yeah, I needed the peace initially, and then I was just taken by the depth of the Mass, of how much more reverent it was. And nothing against, being a Lutheran or Methodist. I mean, everyone's I don't hold that against anyone. I found Jesus Christ in the Catholic Church. I think everyone can have a personal relationship in different ways. It's just, for me, that's where I found him. And I just wanted to know more and more. I wanted to learn more. So it was about 5 or 6 months after this first started, I got asking around, well, how do you become Catholic? I thought it was like becoming a Methodist or Lutheran, just said a prayer and you're in. Turns out I wasn't.
Yeah.
I ended up meeting a beautiful lady who was running the RCIA at the time. Her name's Diane Hyder. She still goes there. And I called one day and asked about it. She told me to come on in, and I went and met her, and she laid all the schedule out and how long it was going to take. And I think it was every Wednesday, every Thursday night, and every Sunday morning we met as a class. And I'm thinking, oh, there's no way this is going to work. I was farming full time on call for the township. And I was polite. I said, well, I'll think about this and try. I said, I might miss a few times. She goes, that would be fine. You can just make up those days personally with me. I'm like, okay. So I was thinking this isn't going to work. But it turned out I went to the first one, and the second one, I never missed one. No, never missed one. It always would rain when it should have been fireman, or big snowstorm was coming. I knew I wouldn't be able to go, but then it didn't. So I never missed one class.
Oh, that's God's grace.
It's God's grace. And it's just, I went from being like, I'm not going to be able to do that. I can't do all this, to the point when it was over, classes were over, and I came into the church. I'm like, what am I going to do on Thursday nights now? I'm going to miss this so much.
Yeah.
And it was a wonderful experience. I was 53 years old at that time, going to RCIA. We had like 21 people in our class. We had a big class, and they came in, and very, very powerful.
Now, was it comforting when you first showed up to your first class to see those $20 numbers?
I wouldn't say I was comforted by it, because I'm exposing everything right now, but then I was very private and skeptical yet of all this. But as it started, it was wonderful. You make connections with other people going through the same thing. There was college kids there, the people older than me, and we all had our own reason for coming, to the class, but it was very powerful.
Now, coming into the church, what was one thing that you grabbed onto and said, like, I just love this, like about the Blessed Mother, about Jesus? What about the church teachings that really kind of enkindled your fire within you, that started when you're a Lutheran and Methodist, that laid down the foundation?
Well, I think probably I would think back to when I was a Lutheran, because communion was a little bit more like that as a Lutheran as it was with the Eucharist. They don't proclaim it to be the true body and blood like we believe. Yet it was very sacred. Where in the Methodist Church, it wasn't quite to that extent in the way I looked at it. But the Eucharist definitely was very powerful for me. Our Blessed Mother, as a little bit farther in the story, will become very relevant. And just, I really would look at her. And once I started to learn to pray the rosary, the Hail Marys and stuff, that was very, very important. And the fact that everywhere in the world on that Sunday, we're all praying the same prayers. That is just so much different than so many other denominations, where I think a lot of it goes its own way at times. And still Bible-based, I'm sure, but that was very powerful to me, that these prayers are being said everywhere at the same masses, how many different languages.
Yeah.
That was what really was important to me.
Now, so you're initiated into the church, a full member of the church. Now, where do you take it? You could, like you said, you're not going to have those same meetings every night. Was it Thursday nights or nights? So how'd you keep that fire within you alive and go closer to Jesus?
I would listen to EWTN quite a bit. I would listen to everything I could on the radio, because I wanted to learn more and more. Right? I kept yearning to learn more about church fathers, and the more I would learn, the more I wanted to learn. So I tried to find any other way. I'm in the church or at home or in the truck at work so much that is always a way I can turn the radio on and listen. There's so with EWTN, Annunciation Radio here locally, there's so many things you can learn. So I think that's how I sort of satisfied that need for knowledge. Turn it on when Mother Angelica's talking. And they're like, what's going on? And they get drawn into and learning more about, even if they never convert, it just brings them deeper into at least their faith.
She's like everyone's grandma.
Yes. She's like through so many. Talk about, one tough woman.
Yeah.
That was something.
Yeah. Have you been there in person?
No.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I need to take you. It's a beautiful place. But yeah, it's no. So your prayer life is increasing. Now you have the EWTN Ascension Radio. Are you reading any spiritual reading? Going to confession? Going to mass?
I started to go to morning masses when I could at work, to try to get. I just felt like I had to go. Like that's the way I wanted to start my day. If I could get there before work, so that was very, very important to me. And I think, just different anything I could devour. I couldn't really speak of any one thing, but I would just read whatever I could. Church fathers, and it was just needing to be there in front of the Blessed Sacrament, just to get as much as I could of Jesus in the Eucharist or whichever way I could.
And once you realize like who the Eucharist is, it's Jesus. It's the living body, blood, soul, divinity. It's Jesus. And Jesus God. And once you like clicks, you want to spend time with them.
Right. I look at it too as a little bit. Somebody had said once in one of my Acts retreats that it's like a love story. How can you fall in love with your wife? You have to get to know her. And same way with Jesus. He loves us unconditionally, yet we have to get to know him and talk to him and read about him and share it in the way we can to truly love him. We'll never be loved as much as he loves us, I don't think, but
yeah, if you only see your wife once a week on Sunday, your relationship is going to be one way. But if you see your wife every day and spend hours with her, you're going to have a much more intimate relationship with her.
And just talk with them. That's the nice thing about the jobs that I would have. I could talk with him, whatever I'm doing on the farm. It isn't like I was sitting in front of my computer. I'm surrounded by his beauty, farming or whatever we're doing. I'm just so easy just to have that conversation.
Yeah. I grew up in the woods, and that was the first thing for me was God, his reflection in nature, like his beauty is reflected. And that's when I came, I'm like, who made all this? All the woods and Lake Michigan and the farming. It's just absolutely beautiful around here.
Yeah. Yeah. It's in the center of all of his creation. And I could never understand how people could think there wasn't a creator when you see, like we have beef cattle. So you'd see that, and we had horses too, but a foal that was just born or a baby calf just born, and how perfect it is, the mother knows exactly how to care for it, and the baby knows, to go to it. And it's like, this couldn't just happen out of the blue. This is all by grand design.
Yeah.
So it's so easy to see it when you're immersed in nature.
Yeah. It's just an all random, like God is guiding. And
yeah.
All right. So the next step is you're a practicing Catholic, growing in your faith. Now continue on with your
love story.
Your love story part. Yeah.
So, things are going good. I'm at home, doing things with the kids. Everything's going great. I'm not falling into any of the old vices or practices. I mean, my heart's full with Jesus Christ's love. And then I'm sharing that love with the people in my family and, with others. But the kids were downward. Several were married. Cassie's getting close to getting married. So it's like, it's awful lonely. I mean, I didn't want to fall back into doing the same ways, going to bars or whatever, but I just felt like there's got to be more. There's got to be more to life than this. And it was about this time that I ran into, Vicky's dad, my wife had now, Vicky. I would see him in Kroger's from time to time, and we never really talked too much. I was always friends with him back when we were dating, but I was taking a load of hay over by where they lived, and he still lived there. Him and his wife still lived there. So on my way back, he was washing his car, so I pulled in just to visit with it. And out of the blue, so Vicky, all those years she was away for 30 years, never called her parents during the week. She'd always call her mom and dad on Sunday afternoon. But this was a Thursday, about 6:30 in the evening. And I was talking to her dad, Russell, and Vicky's mom walked out with a cordless phone and said, Russell, somebody wants to talk to you. He said like 3 words and handed the phone to me, and it was Vicky on the other side, on the other end. Oh, she didn't call on a Thursday. Never did in all those years. And I was just like, well, who is this? And she said, well, this is Vicky. And who's this? I said, well, this is Matt. And so we started talking. And then I just asked because her dad had told me she'd been divorced. She had gone through divorce about the same time I had lost my wife. And so we had, both our lives were pretty kind of parallel in that way. And then she had 2 children the same ages as 2 of my children. We lived parallel lives, but we didn't know anything about the other. So we started talking, and then we decided to meet at a restaurant like halfway. She was in Middletown, Ohio, and I was up here, and it became apparent that it was what we both wanted and needed. And she prayed a prayer. I don't know if I'm gonna get the timing exactly right, but roughly the time I was going through my conversion, she had prayed a prayer one night to ask God if there's any manly men that love Him, and she left it at that. And it was halfway a month or 6 weeks later that connection was made.
Wow.
So
It's like her guardian angel talked to your guardian angel and said, hey, I got the man for you.
and it was apparent that it was the perfect match because she could retire in a year from teaching. So we dated apart, and then we got married by a Lutheran pastor because I felt like we had to get married because she had to go through an annulment.
Oh, okay.
And we didn't want to wait. We'd been apart for this long, so a great Lutheran pastor. We went through instructions with him, and he married us. It was just pretty private ceremony. All our kids and a few friends, and she still had another 6 months of teaching to do down there, and I was still working here. So we lived apart. We could, be together on the weekends. But she then was starting to be interested in it. She'd go to mass with me always and was starting to become interested in the church.
Wow.
So then I went through RCIA with her, and she went through.
Wow. So what was the moment that clicked for her saying, I want to become Catholic?
Seeing the difference, even though it was 30 years we were apart, seeing the difference it was to me. And if we would visit, no matter where we were, I'd say the only thing is I have to go to mass. I never miss a Sunday mass. And I said, you're welcome to come along. I wouldn't force her to it. And I think she was roughly Lutheran Methodist at that time and didn't go a lot. And she chose to go with me.
Yeah.
And she could, from the very beginning, she goes, things just feel different here. It feels, she could feel something is different than where that the other experiences at church. So I became more and more, and finally I encouraged her enough to start with RCIA. And when she came into the church, her annulment came through. Then Father George Wenziger, who we had at St. Rose at the time, married us, or kind of validated the marriage on Divine Mercy Sunday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. With her sponsor and Deacon Victor, her sponsor's husband, and Father George and me. And it was beautiful to share your faith with your wife like that. And we both went through some very, very hard times, but Jesus brought us together. And
done Divine Mercy Sunday. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it was very, very powerful. And the vows, the words that he spoke to us as we were going through this, and how he included, God in everything, and Christ in everything. Christ is at the center of this marriage, and you always have to remember that. I think if so many people would take these vows more seriously and understand exactly what they're agreeing to and who they're agreeing with, not just their spouse, but also God, it would become much more important.
Yeah, it takes, you need God and your wife. You need 3 for a marriage, and you should be focused on getting yourself to heaven and your wife to heaven, and then your kids to heaven.
Yeah,
like you need to know what's important in your marriage.
Yes. God has to be the center of it. He has to be the most important thing in both of your lives, and then your spouse the second, and then your children third. And I think if more men understood that it's your responsibility to get your family to heaven, they probably could devote more time to trying to do that.
Yeah. So, and then, like I said, before we started the podcast, was you wearing a Knights of Columbus hat. I said, like, more men need to be part of Knights of Columbus and do men's retreats. They need to be more active. Like you can't just do Sundays. Like
No, so you need a community. I feel like the community you surround yourself with gives you the strength. Iron sharpens iron. We have to be with other men. Men have a hard time at really allowing other men to get in, other than just friends. You can go bowling or golfing or go to the bar, but you need good Catholic men in your lives that you can count on and rely on. They can rely on you, and that's what the Knights of Columbus have meant for me. And being involved in the Acts has been so wonderful. I've seen so many lives, hearts change, be able to go through that when you invoke the Holy Spirit to come down and to help change men's hearts. So,
you need that community, that brotherhood.
you do.
Because I mean, it's nice to have your wife support and your children. But yeah, it's so important to have other men as your close friends to support you.
They'll pray for you and be there for you. And when you're going through hard times, they're going to be there for you no matter what. They're going to hold you accountable. We all should be held accountable to the same standard. We know what it is to be a good Catholic man, but we sometimes need somebody say, "What are you doing? Come on, let's."
Yeah, I always say I needed a 2x4 to my face. It's like, because I can just be like, I'm doing good, but I'm like drifting away. And
yeah.
So now you're married. Now you're in the church, and just go back to your kids. How has your kids seen you from where you were in your dark place to becoming Catholic and now married?
Yeah, they just were so thankful that they saw me happy again and a part of their lives again and engaged again. I think when you're going through so much, you're not engaged. I mean, you might be going through the motions, but you're not there.
Yeah, you're not present.
You're not present. And you have to be when you raise a child. I don't care how old they are. Now they're all older, in their 30s. So, but it's just, I guess we'd have to ask them exactly what they would say. But I know they all felt like they were just so glad to see me back and see me happy. I have 2 stepchildren now. There's 5 children, 8 grandchildren.
Wow.
So it's just a blessing. And we look at that whenever we can get together because they're kind of scattered out. But just what a blessing it is to have family and, everyone loves one another.
What next step did you take? Growing closer to God?
She always felt like, I'm going to do something. What should I do? She decided to be a lector. And has taken that very seriously. We do, we're actually ordinary ministers. We take communion to nursing home.
Oh, wow.
Together. So that's
beautiful.
Yeah, I would highly recommend. It's kind of scary at first, but once you do it, it's such a wonderful ministry to see there's such a need, especially after COVID. People are so lonely that you get to go there and take Jesus to them and to see the tears run down their face is so amazing. So we're doing that. She goes to morning mass almost every morning. I go if I can, depending on work. And it's just become a very, very important part of both of our lives.
Yeah. Can you talk about that just for a minute, just a moment? Yeah. Bringing Jesus in the Eucharist, who's alive in the Eucharist to people that, like you said, are alone. So many times their families, they stop visiting them. They're alone in the nursing home. And to be able to bring Jesus to them. Yeah, just talk about that experience.
Well, and so when we started this, it was right after COVID. The restriction had finally been lifted. So when we were starting this little ministry of ours and taking, Jesus to the nursing homes, a lot of these people prior to COVID were daily mass people.
Wow.
So they had gone without because no one could take it to them. So they had gone without him, in this form. And we were able to go there and to see the joy and the tears once they finally were able to see the Eucharist. It was it was almost more powerful for us to experience, to see what they're experiencing. But you really, really saw the power of it, and what a wonderful ministry it is to be able to do that for them.
Yeah. So for all those listening that want to be more involved, bringing the Eucharist to people in the hospital, nursing homes, it's life-changing. Because you see it, like you're an instrument bringing Jesus to people, but to see Jesus affect so many people, like you said, they're crying, and they're just so happy to see Jesus in the Eucharist.
And they would just couldn't wait till we're on like a team. So we go once a month with another team. There's somebody that goes there every Thursday. And I think someone goes on Sunday. So, but they'd be like, now when are you going to come back? So, but it's so powerful and it's so much needed. I mean, we're always short on stuff on Eucharistic, people that will do that. So,
And you do that with your wife.
Yep.
That's beautiful. So more couples when you do that.
Yeah.
So that's beautiful.
Right.
So thank you for doing that.
Well, thank you. And it's so easy to do. You have to, take classes and, I can't think of what it's called exactly when it missions you to be able to do it, but it's not hard and you'll get so much out of it. You won't believe how it'll make you feel.
Wow. Now, can you talk about that extra treat and how the extra treat has affected you spiritually in your relationship?
It has changed my relationship with Christ. I think to really narrow it down, when you get together with a group of men, and we start forming, I think 2 or 3 months before it actually starts, start meeting as a group, praying and being together. We share a meal and we just invoke the Holy Spirit to come down and change our hearts so that we're able to change other men's hearts when the retreat starts. It's very, very, very powerful. And what I talked about kind of with the nights, you've got these brothers then that you're close with for the rest of your life. I mean, you're that connected and it's such an intimate, I can't, give it too much away about it, but it's such an intimate, Holy Spirit filled and Christ filled weekend. And I've seen so many lives change, so many hearts change that you see a miracle happening before your eyes.
And you see it do it so many times. I've been on previous retreats and just to say yes and give God the opportunity to speak to you and be open to other friendships. But yeah, to just say yes and sign yourself up and be like, all right, I'm going to do it. I feel like that's the hardest step to take.
It is. And for someone who wants to do it for their first time, that is the hardest. I would guarantee that it'll change your life. It will make a difference in your life wholeheartedly. And you'll be a better father, a better husband, just a better man. And you'll have other men in your lives now who you've gone through some of these same experiences with, that they'll be your brothers for life. So
I love the Knights of Columbus because they you start out with the rosary. Can you tell us how has the rosary affected your spiritual life and your life?
Well, especially before a night's meeting, or if brother night would pass, we'd all go to the funeral home and pray the rosary together. There's something about the strength of all these men, different ages, different backgrounds, but praying the same prayers, and and just with how much we love our Blessed Mother and asking her to help us through all this and giving us the strength. It's a very, very powerful, in my opinion, one of the most powerful things we can do in the Catholic Church to change lives, change the world. We just have to give it all to her to be our intercession to the Lord. And miracles have happened many times after praying.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for spending this time with us. Would you like to leave our listeners any last thoughts, any encouragement?
Well, one thing I started out with being adopted, and with our Blessed Mother, I can't tell you exactly. This was probably about 4 or 5 years ago when I was watching. It was the Right to Life March in Washington, D.C., and I had come home I was listening to the radio, came home watching AWTN, and they were interviewing mothers who'd given up babies or had had abortions. And I just started crying. I just started sobbing uncontrollably. I couldn't understand what was wrong with me. I was the only one home, and Vicky wasn't there. And I'm like, what is wrong with it? I'm hearing these testimonies. And I realized then, it had come back to me after all those years, that my mother had given me up for adoption. So I started praying to the Blessed Mother that if this woman who gave me life was still alive, to please let her know that I was raised by a loving family and I'm fine. Everything turned out fine, that she made the right choice. I just kept praying that. to our Blessed Mother to make sure. I was worried about my birth mother.
Wow.
And it was probably about 6 months after I kept praying that. And during my rosaries, and I would pray. And Cassie, the youngest, had some health things going on and came over to the house and wanted to know if I do any family history other than, about my side. She knew about, her mom's side. I said, well, I don't. I don't know anything about that. So she said, well, would it be okay if I tried to find anything out? I'm like, yeah, you can do what you want.
Yeah.
Well, it comes back that she was able to locate my birth mother, who
Wow.
lives in Tallahassee, Florida, who's still alive today. And we had reconnected, and what a beautiful story it was. And her name is Judy, and she prayed for me every day after she gave me up. And it was one of her prayers that we would reconnect one day. And I think it was definitely through our Blessed Mother and those prayers that made that all happen. And it was so powerful that in this day with what goes on, and the powerful, how beautiful it is to bring a young child. No matter, she felt she had no other choice. So she chose to give me up for adoption, but she still could have made a different choice, but she chose not to. And how everything would have changed if she wouldn't have, I wouldn't be here. We would be telling the story. So it's very, very powerful. And I guess just to sum it all up, God loves us. He loves each and every one of us more than we'll ever understand. And he'll be there for us no matter what. We just have to give it all to him. Just surrender to him. Allow him to help you as you move forward. And what'll happen is going to be extraordinary. It's not always going to be easy, but it's going to be something beautiful and extraordinary.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us on Forgettable Saint. I'm Sean Farkas, and I hope you enjoyed Matt's conversion story. And I hope to see you next week. And God bless, and go be a saint.